All right, so we are now going to practice with the test. And what you'll notice here is the timer is running and all the questions are stated in this location. So use the drop down. Choose a what file is unprocessed and contains more data than a standard. Okay, so a raw file is unprocessed and it contains more data than a standard JPEG file. So if we feel good about that, we'll hit the next button and you'll see that we got that correct. So we'll hit next again. So which option is not a factor when determining which kind of images to include? Um, so my own stylistic preference is not an option for determining what to include for this target audience. So we do want to include age of audience, the desired goals of the client, and the purpose of that project. So we're going to hit next. And so you'll see that the beginning part here is a lot of these types of questions where, and you can see the full question list down here in the summary. So you'll notice that it does kind of require me to go here step by step. So I'm going to pause for just a second and move through to the point where we get another question type. All right, so here we are at a question where we actually have to start engaging with Photoshop. What you'll notice is that for this particular practice, all of the panels that are preloaded in the workspace are over here, and you can see their names. And so anytime we need to use a panel, this is where we're going to go because the question takes up the space where we would normally have expanded panels. So to change the grid lines, we would need to go into the preferences section, and then we will find the grid lines, and it says change grid lines. So here it is to dashed. So right now it's solid, so we're going to change it to dashed with a grid line every 64 pixels with every one division. So that is all good. I don't need to change anything else here. I'll hit OK, but then it says show the grid. So how do we show the grid? Well, that is in the view section and down inside of show. So there's several things here, but the grid is not on, so I will go ahead and turn on this grid. And there it is. We'll hit next. And it says that I have that correct. And then we moved on to the next question. So here's a question where it says to use the lasso tool and content aware fill command. So this is not something that we use very often. So I will go ahead and do that for you. So lasso tool. So that's the first thing we need to find. Okay, so here's our lasso tool. And we're going to remove the balloons. So first I'm going to lasso the balloon. And you'll see that the grid is kind of enabling this little feature here. So I can go in and turn off the grid now. So there's no reason to keep that on anymore. So I have lassoed it, or now that I've taken off that, I can actually be a little bit more specific here. All right. Now it says to use the content aware fill. So where do we find fill? Fill is inside of the edit menu. So I'm going to go to fill and we get this dialog box. So typically this dialog box will automatically select foreground color, but we want it to use what's called content aware. And what that will do is it'll look at content around the area and replace it. So I'm going to leave this and hit OK. And you'll see that it automatically looked for other content through its AI engine. Okay, it's an artificial intelligence software. So it's looking and it's finding what pixels it should replace that with. All right, and so I'm going to Control D to deselect and hit next. Okay. So again, create a new document. So File New. It says to do the video section. So I'm going to come down into video, and it says HDTV 720. So it's this one. And then it says name the document movie. This is where you will, because you're doing a file new, this is where you will change it. And it's really important that you use the capital letters. So M is capitalized, so it's important that that happens there. And it says accept all other settings. So we'll leave all that be and hit create. Now we see this new document, but we don't have to try to save it or anything. All we need to do is just hit next and see if we got the answer correct. Okay, so the help section. So this is, let's just say you come across a question that you really just don't know what to do. So it says in the print settings, ensure that color handling option is set to Photoshop manages colors. Well, if you don't have any idea of what to do, you can click the help here and it's going to tell you what you need to do to get to this setting. So that's why this is called training mode. So we will go into File and go down to Print. And you'll notice that there's all these sections here that you can either collapse or expand. And so if your color management section is not open, you can click that because it says in the color management settings, click color handling, and we want Photoshop manages colors. All right, hit print and then hit, and then I will cancel out of this. So I did click print, but there's no need to actually print. The software will try to get you to do that because this is the real software. Okay, but I will cancel that print option if I've clicked that instead of done, and then just hit next and then go on to the next question. Okay, so unlike Photoshop normally, you will have to toggle by clicking the layers panel and finding the thing it wants you to find and then doing something else without necessarily having to keep looking at this. And I'll show you what I mean. So it says we want to change the circles layer. So I have to go into the layers panel and choose circles. Then it says use the styles preset option to change the circle to the C style. Okay, where are my styles? Well, if you don't know where something is, it's always a good idea to come and look into the window panel at all the panels because they're only showing us a very small subset of the panels here. There is a styles panel. So if I click on the styles panel, what you'll notice is that it loads it for us here in our bar. So here's the styles panel, and also you'll see here that I can expand this, and these open and collapse. So it says we want the C style. So what you can do is hover over things until you see a tooltip. And so if I continue to hover, you can now notice here that I have found the C style. So I'm going to click that, and you'll notice it changed it only for the circles that I had previously selected when I clicked on this layer. Okay, so now that's it. That's all I have to do, and I'm going to hit next. All right. So I hope this was a good tutorial for how to use training mode in Gmetrix.